What's up, Jimmy?
Hey, what's up? So,
Thanks everyone for tuning in for another episode of Football Talk with Jake and Jim. It's been our pleasure to have, I think, 3 episodes we've had so far, Jimmy?
Yep, this is number 4.
So this is our 4th episode now. Appreciate all those that have supported us in our first 3 and looking forward to spending the rest of the NFL offseason and season with you. So actually pretty busy week this week. A few of the topics we're going to cover is Dak Prescott's huge contract extension. We're going to cover the restructuring a few of the Cowboys contracts to compensate for that restructure. We're going to talk about Emmanuel Sanders being released by the New Orleans Saints, as well as Mark Ingram signing with the Texans. Are there any other things that we're going to cover, Jimmy?
Just one more after that. The Patriots re-signed Cam Newton, so we're going to talk about their decision
That's
to
right.
do that.
Right. So first, let's talk about the Dak Prescott contract, what that means for the Cowboys going forward, and what their outlook's going to be this season because of it. So, Jimmy, I'll have you start off since you're the resident Cowboys expert. What do you think of that deal they made with Dak Prescott, and what are the ramifications of it moving forward for the next couple of years of the Dallas Cowboys organization?
Right, so we all saw that Dak just signed a brand new deal, 4 years for $160 million. He's getting paid only behind Patrick Mahomes at this point. And we were talking about in one of our previous episodes how when the quarterback makes that much money, you can't really pay other players to protect you. And at that point, I was saying it was a bad idea, but now I have to take a taste of my own medicine as Dak took the contract that we were saying was crazy. And so, does he deserve the money? I believe he deserves big money. I don't know if he deserves to be paid the second highest quarterback in the league. With 1 playoff win. He has as many career playoff wins as Tony Romo in a lot less time, but he's a really good quarterback. He's like top 5 in the league in terms of quarterback rating since 2016. Passing yards, he's high up there. Interceptions, he's low on that list. So, he's not a bad quarterback. People like to give him a hard time, but, that comes with being the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys because you either love him or you hate him. And so, Tony Romo faced the same kind of criticism. But, about that contract, the Cowboys have restructured Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, and Lyle Collins' contracts. And those are the 3 offensive stars for the Cowboys. That's Dak's wall right there.
Don't like that.
And so,
don't like that. You got to keep your offensive line happy.
Well, they can't restructure a contract without both sides consenting. And so I think, the linemen, while they don't like to take less money, I'm sure they understood why it had to happen. With the salary lowering and things like that, it just had to be done when they gave Dak this big payday. Do they deserve more money as the linemen? Sure. But that money's just not there to go around right now. So in terms of, Dak's re-signing, the contract restructures, the contract restructures for the linemen and how this is going to look for the Cowboys, what do you think going forward?
I have a lot of reason to be concerned. Obviously, Dak Prescott's a solid quarterback, and, the Cowboys organization wanted to keep him, but at that steep of a price, now he has that expectation to be almost as good as Patrick Mahomes. And, we've seen Mahomes has been in the
Super Bowl twice.
League far less time, been to the Super Bowl twice, and that's the kind of money that Dak Prescott's getting paid. And I don't think anyone thinks he's even close to Mahomes, which I would have to agree with that. And these quarterbacks continuously are asking, well, why is Tom Brady so good? Why does he keep winning? Well, Tom Brady takes pay cuts every year so he gets better players around him. Right. He's a smart man. And it's kind of like mind-boggling to me that, we keep sharing this with you. We've mentioned this, I think, in every single week, that no team with a quarterback that has a max contract has won a Super Bowl. Not ever. And I don't expect that ever to happen. And so we have this now conundrum where these players keep taking their money, but they're like in the process of taking all that money, all the money they can, getting what they can get, they're essentially throwing away their Super Bowl hopes and their hopes to be a contender each year, because now you look at the Dallas Cowboys and they have, extraordinary amounts of money going to Zeke and Dak Prescott,
and Amari too.
There's a lot less money to be.
There's
a lot less money to be spread around to the rest of the players, and so that's really concerning to me, because if you need 10 men on the field at a time, 11 men on the field at a time, and to have any players get paid that much money is really going to hamper an organization. And so, it's really concerning moving forward for the Dallas Cowboys. I think obviously you got your guy. Everyone likes Dak Prescott. He's a solid quarterback. So I think he's a good face of the franchise. But no quarterback, I don't care who you are, deserves that amount of money. I mean, Tom Brady's never taken that much money. And, look at how successful he's been. And, I'm sure his endorsements have more than made up for the pay cuts that he's consistently taking. And at the end of the day, I understand these quarterbacks want to get as much money as they can get. Like, I get that. You only have a short career. But at some point, at the end of the day, like, how much money do you need? Really, like, he lives in Texas, where the real estate prices are a lot lower than, say, California. And, like, how much money do you need? How can you spend all that much money? Why not take a, $5-10 million less a year or more, and fill those hands with rings like Tom Brady has done. So I think go ahead.
What I feel strongly about this subject is, it's a hit against the cap space, which is the biggest problem. What Tom Brady does is, not only does he take pay cuts, but he works more incentives into his contract. So say, you win a playoff game,
right.
That's $1 million or $500,000. You throw so many touchdowns this season,
absolutely.
That's another incentive. You win a Super Bowl, you get this money. So it's like, instead of taking all that money hard against the cap, they should work more incentives into their contract. And Tom Brady knows to do that, but most other players, they're like,
absolutely.
No, I'm greedy. I want the guaranteed money. I don't want that, like, if I miss the playoffs, I'm not getting my payday. But I feel like, that helps the player to actually get their team to where they need to be, and also it helps the organization be able to pay all their players.
It's extra motivation to play well, and you should already want that for yourself. But when you go after guaranteed money and all that goes against a hard salary cap, it really hampers a team, and so, I mean, like I said, you're almost guaranteed not to win a Super Bowl if your quarterback takes a max contract. So I think that's really worrisome for me. And as a Cowboys fan, you have to be worried. I mean, even without a max contract, he still only has one playoff win. Now with a max contract, and they have the ability to sign a lot less good players, that's the guy you have. So that's concerning. I mean, I still believe that. To this day, I will say that over and over again, that any quarterback does not need to get that much money, and they're not worth that much money for team success.
Right. Okay, so moving on to... Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say...
No, go ahead.
Moving on to Emmanuel Sanders.
On to...
So, the Saints decided to release him a couple days ago, and it was an interesting choice because, you took away one of Tom Brady's weapons right behind Alvin Kamara, who's a running back, by the way.
Oh, Drew Brees, excuse us. Drew Brees' weapons.
Yeah, Drew Brees' weapons. But Alvin Kamara, who happens to be a running back, by the way, was the leading receiver for the Saints last season. But he didn't break 800 receiving yards, and the second best behind him was Emmanuel Sanders, an actual receiver. He didn't break 800 yards. He was right behind Alvin Kamara at like 750 or something, and they both shared 5 touchdowns. But Emmanuel Sanders was more of a target for Drew Brees than even Michael Thomas, which is interesting because a few years back, Michael Thomas was one of the most dominant receivers in the league. And
yeah, I think last year he set the receiving record for a single season.
Right, and then he was just kind of
was it yards or receptions? It was either yards or receptions he set the record for. But anyways, the fall of their wide receiver core has been pretty substantial from last year.
Right, and that 5 touchdowns receiving for Emmanuel Sanders and Alvin Kamara, that was tied for the best right behind the tight end Jared Cook, who only had 7 touchdowns. So you have these receivers who aren't breaking 1,000 yards. They're not getting more than 5 touchdowns besides the tight end. And, you just drop your second best receiver right behind a running back, which is crazy to me. But, that was not a wise decision on the Saints' part. We were just talking about how the Saints didn't really have too much turnover in our last episode, and now they're getting rid of one of Drew Brees' main weapons, even though none of the receivers put up the productivity of an elite receiver in the league. They were mediocre at best. So what do you think of the Saints' decision to release Emmanuel Sanders?
Yeah, so no, it's a very interesting decision, and I think the Saints are kind of getting to a point where they're at a crossroads here. A lot of aging players on their team. Drew Brees, we don't know how long he's going to play, if he's going to even play this next year. And so it's really interesting. I think Emmanuel Sanders is obviously getting older, so I don't think it's a terrible decision to release him. They could probably get a player that's a lot cheaper than him. But it's just interesting what the Saints are going to do these next couple of years. They've had a few years in a row where they've been considered one of the best teams in the league in the regular season and just have not been able to get it done in the playoffs. And so they've really come to a crossroads where they're like, do we rebuild? Do we continue to try to, get to that Super Bowl and win another Super Bowl with Drew Brees? Like, what do we do here? And so I think that's a good decision to release Emmanuel Sanders, but that may be an indication that they're looking at more of a rebuild type scenario than looking to actually contend this year.
Right.
But it'll be interesting because obviously Drew Brees, if he's in the fold, they're going to be looking to win now. So that's really going to be the determining factor. But they have, I would say, a capable backup quarterback, two capable backup quarterbacks in Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston in the event that Drew Brees decides not to move forward, which might be a strong likelihood, but who really knows? Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill have much better arm strength, but obviously Drew Brees is very cerebral and he's a much better decision maker than those other two. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. But I think as a Saints fan, there's a reason to be concerned with what's going on and what kind of direction the team's going to take moving forward. Like I said, it's felt like they've been knocking on the door of a Super Bowl title these last few years and have been bounced. Not even in the NFC Championship game, they haven't made it there. They've lost twice in a row, in the divisional round. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, with the Saints moving forward.
Right. And then our next topic is the Texans deciding to sign Mark Ingram. The Texans need to be making some considerable moves in this offseason, and their decision to sign Mark Ingram is a head-scratcher. He played 11 games last season and rushed for just barely over 200 yards. He didn't break 300 yards, and playing in 11 games, you've got to break 300 as a running back. Even averaging 50 yards a game, you're going to get more than 300 yards. And so also, he's going to be starting behind David Johnson, most likely, who only rushed for 600-something yards in the offseason. So it's two less than mediocre running backs. And their decision to sign Mark Ingram, it just blows my mind because he's not a good running back. He was at one point, but, he started to fall off these past couple of years, and he's not the running back he was.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And, yeah, I just don't know what's going on in the minds of those Texans. They're just a dumpster fire. They really need to get rid of Deshaun Watson before it becomes a Le'Veon Bell situation. Yep. And his trade value significantly diminishes, or he goes for free, right? And that's kind of the worst case scenario. But the longer they wait, the more that pick loses its value. And we saw the same thing kind of as well with John Elway. Actually was a similar situation, although that was through the draft. John Elway didn't want to go to the Baltimore Colts, and so he held out and said he wasn't going to report to camp, and he threatened to play baseball for the Yankees if the Baltimore Colts selected him and didn't trade him. And so we saw, though, as they let that go on and they ended up selecting him with that first overall pick, the value of that pick, the value of trading away John Elway, so the return they got for him just kept going down and down and down as the time passed. And so I think it's important that they get Deshaun Watson traded as soon as possible. But again, we talked about this in the show last week. What potential suitor has enough picks and is willing to trade those picks for Deshaun Watson? And so really, I think the Texans are in a very tough situation. They have an unhappy star quarterback, and they're asking price is really high, so they're trying to find a reasonable suitor, and they're kind of having difficulty with both those problems. And then, here they are signing, I hate to use the word washed, because these players are still they're still NFL players, right? But Mark Ingram's kind of washed at this point in his career, and so why is a rebuilding team signing Mark Ingram? Maybe they're trying to get a veteran presence in there. Maybe they're trying to get a good locker room guy to fix their situation, but they're going to need a lot more than Mark Ingram to fix the unrest in Houston right now. And I mean, tough time for Houston if you're a sports fan. I mean, you have the Astros coming off that cheating scandal. You have the Texans now with Deshaun Watson unhappy, J.J. Watt out of town. Harden. And then you have the Rockets that have lost, I think they've lost 14 straight games now.
After losing to the Kings.
And so some tough times for Houston sports fans in general. But I digress. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens in Houston, not only for the Texans, but for those other organizations as well.
So here's a dream scenario, in an ideal world. I know you believe that Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson are going to be hard players to get out there because of how many draft picks it would cost them. But what if Deshaun Watson could end up, getting a trade for Christian McCaffrey or Derrick Henry? These players, the Panthers, they don't have a good quarterback right now. And I could say the same about the Titans. So if you send him to a team that doesn't have a quarterback and they have an elite running back, you get a fair trade out of that. Kind of, in a way. The one giving up the running back would probably need to receive a little bit more because Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey are the best running backs in the league right now. So you need to give Deshaun Watson and a little bit something else. But ultimately, I feel like that would be one of the best trades that they could get for Deshaun Watson.
I personally disagree with that, just because with McCaffrey and Derrick Henry, you have franchise running backs, and unless you're getting just an astronomical amount of players, there's no, I wouldn't say Deshaun Watson is even close to McCaffrey and Derrick Henry in terms of their value to the team. And I think Deshaun Watson, obviously I'd consider him a star quarterback, but I think the difference between Deshaun Watson and Teddy Bridgewater and Deshaun Watson and Ryan Tannehill is a lot smaller than people think. I think, we look at kind of the personnel that the Texans had this year, they had a pretty solid team, and, it only resulted in them going 4-12. And so I think Deshaun Watson's a star quarterback, but I think he needs to show that he's a winner. I don't think he's been able to show that in the NFL thus far. I mean, he's had some really good teams, but, he's not been able to close the deal both in the playoffs and in the regular season. So, and that's why I think it's really hard to determine his value. I think, like I said, the most, what makes the most sense in terms of the trade for Deshaun Watson would be for him to be traded to a team like the Jets or the Dolphins, where they have a young quarterback that can be sent over to the Texans in return, and maybe they have, obviously they have a lot of draft capital with the trades they've made, but they could also, trade a couple first rounders with those young quarterbacks. I think that makes the most sense to me. I don't see any star running backs moving. Derrick Henry obviously I would consider him to be the best running back in the NFL, and Christian McCaffrey's not far behind, although he's had some injuries as of late. So I don't see that happening. Obviously the NFL is a very unpredictable place, but I don't see Deshaun Watson being moved for running back.
Right. I mean, in a dream world, it'd be cool, but in the NFL, you also don't see player-for-player trades a lot. That happens more in the NBA. NFL usually trades are based around picks.
It's totally
but
true.
Just throwing that out there is something that could be a cool little option.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, go ahead.
Now we're on the Patriots' decision to re-sign Cam Newton, which also is a mind-blowing one because Cam Newton didn't break 3,000 passing yards this past season. He threw 8 touchdowns for 10 interceptions, and he played in 15 games, going 7-8. You play 15 games throwing for less than 3,000 yards and only making 8 touchdowns as a quarterback. That's not a quarterback that you want in your franchise as a team. That's backup quarterback stats. That is not a starting quarterback who should be making those kind of statistics. So it's crazy to me that the Patriots would re-sign him and trust him with their entire franchise once again. I know the receiving core wasn't great for the Patriots last year, but that's not an excuse. If you're a good quarterback, you make do with what you have and don't throw for less than 3,000 yards.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that. It's interesting with Cam Newton. He was obviously an MVP caliber player and took the Panthers to the Super Bowl a couple of years back, but he's far from that player now. I saw some flashes of brilliance from him last year, but nothing that was close to their. I think they were 14-2, 15-1 in the regular season
when they went to the Super Bowl. Yeah, that was a 15-1 season, and he won MVP that season.
Yeah, and he won MVP that year, so he wasn't close to that form that he had at that point, but. I always wonder with the Patriots, do they have a greater plan in mind? So maybe they're using Cam Newton as kind of a mentor to another quarterback, but still, they paid him $14 million, so that seems far-fetched at this point. But yeah, I think given my experience with the NFL, I think it's always imperative to try to see what's going on with the Patriots, because it seems like they always have a greater plan in place. And maybe that was just Tom Brady over there. I know a lot of people have had that kind of conundrum in their head. Well, was the Patriots dynasty, was that Tom Brady, or was that Bill Belichick? I think this last year really showed that it was Tom Brady, although Bill Belichick has a good system as well, and they have a good front office there. And they develop players really well in New England. But, I have to say that, maybe it's their time to be at the bottom of the AFC East moving forward. And we've seen the Buffalo Bills are looking great. I think it's just a matter of time before they make a Super Bowl. Josh Allen seems to be getting better every year. I think McDermott's a coach up there. He's been doing a fantastic job. I've really enjoyed watching the Bills and how they've run things in the last couple of years. Their system seems to be good. Everyone seems to be happy, and they seem to be playing really well. And so, maybe it's time for the Buffalo Bills and the Dolphins to kind of ascend in the NFC East, and the
still
Jets.
Bottom feeders.
We'll see about them. They might still be cellar dwellers for a while here, but I think we might see a taking of the torch per se by the Buffalo Bills. I don't know what are your thoughts on that?
No,
Jimbo?
I agree. The Buffalo Bills were definitely a dominant team in the league last season, and then a couple seasons ago, they still made playoffs. They weren't as good that last season, the season before, but they were still a pretty solid team. So each year they're stepping up and getting better and better. I think they will be the team leading the AFC East for years to come. Kind of like the Chiefs took over the AFC West when Patrick Mahomes became the starter. So that's another dynasty that's forming. I think the Bills will be a dynasty if they hold on to Josh Allen and they hold on to Cole Beasley. They don't hold on to Stephon Diggs because they actually just released him. But anyways, yes.
Did
Stephon
they really?
Diggs
When
is
was
no
that?
longer with the Bills. So that was an interesting
Wow.
choice. But I still believe that the Bills will be an elite team for years to come, especially considering the Patriots just re-signed Cam Newton after going 7-9. They have a lot to catch up on. The Jets, they've been a joke for decades. They'll continue to be the joke of that division for a while until they can figure things out. And the Dolphins, they kind of came up last year too. So I think it'll be a battle between the Bills and the Dolphins for the next 3-5 seasons.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's really exciting looking at the young players that are coming up in the NFL. I think we're starting to see a changing of kind of generations quarterback-wise. You have a lot of aging starters. You have Aaron Rodgers. Obviously he still is a really good ball player, but he's 36, I think 37. You have Big Ben, who's like 38. You have Brady, who's going on, I think 42, 43. And then you have Breeze. Yeah, exactly. And then you have Breeze, who's around 42, 43 too. And so you kind of have that one generation that Jimmy and I have seen kind of grow up that is now kind of advancing their life, approaching retirement. And then you have these young bucks that are really exciting to watch. Like, you have Mahomes, you have Josh Allen, you have Kyler Murray,
and Sam Darnold.
And there's, obviously Lamar Jackson, Sam Darnold. You have a lot of these young quarterbacks that are trying to make their way in an NFL where there's still these old guys are leading the league. I mean, obviously Tom Brady became the oldest quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl this year, and so we're seeing this interesting and intriguing battle between the new blood and the old blood that has kind of ruled the NFL for many years previously. So it's really exciting, and Jimmy and I can't be more excited to watch what unfolds this offseason, and then obviously the draft's coming fairly soon here, and the draft and this NFL season. I think the NFL obviously is always moving forward, and it's really exciting to see what this league's going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years here.
Well, those are the topics we had for today. We have 4 minutes to hit the 30-minute mark. If you don't have any other topics to discuss, I think we can just call it here.
Yeah, no, before we get off, we appreciate everyone tuning in to watch this week's episode. This is our 4th episode now. Any comments you have, any feedback, we would love to hear it, as well as if you guys have topics you'd like to see us discuss in the next coming weeks, would love to see those as well. We also want to announce we're going to have the first annual football talk with Jake and Jim Fantasy Football League. We're going to be launching as we get closer to the NFL season, so we're really excited to play fantasy with you. That'll be discussed. Our league will be discussed on a weekly basis on our show as well. Just obviously, we want to keep the topics we go over new and engaging. So we're really excited to bring that to you this year, and we're really excited obviously for this year in general. 2021 is looking a lot more promising than 2020, and hopefully we can get to some football games this year, get some fans in the seats.
We're going to be starting a fantasy season, so this is going to be for the fans. So if you guys want to join us and be part of the show and be part of our league, we'll be discussing the outcomes on the show. We'll be discussing how we're doing, so you could really be a part of this yourself. So if you want to be part of that, just message the page or comment or something, and we'll definitely keep you updated.
Right, absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks so much everyone for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
All right,
bye-bye for now. Thank you.